Hello, and welcome to our discussion today with Cityworks, GISinc, and the City of Carmel, Indiana. Our theme for the day is contactless solutions and continuity of services. Joining us today is Thomas Wilson with GISinc, a Cityworks architect, Shane Burnham, a GIS technician with the City of Carmel, Indiana, and Dinorah Sanchez, a subject matter expert here at Cityworks. And I am Cindy Curletti, a marketing manager also with Cityworks. So today we will be talking about contactless solutions and define that. Thomas will speak with us about the public-facing workflow and public awareness, and we will hear from Shane how Carmel approached this process. Dinorah will then talk with us about internal workflows, including AMS, PLL, dashboards, and more. So as we get started today, it seems like the term contactless solutions is new to us in our organizations, but really the term is nothing new. For years, each of us have been using contactless solutions in day-to-day activities. We process payments online, we shop and order food using our mobile devices, and we can meet with healthcare providers virtually and so much more. So for purposes today, contactless solutions can be defined as interactions that occur remotely across workflows in an organization. Contactless solutions could be described as touchless or reducing in-person interactions to help organizations maintain continuity of services and to help staff work more efficiently across departments, with businesses and with residents. We have learned in the last several months that we can work remotely and in less contact at the office, just as efficiently in person, maybe even more so. So today, as we embrace the concept of contactless solutions at every level of an organization, technology can help support improved efficiency between staff and residents to maintain services across our communities. So before we get started, I want to highlight a few housekeeping items. This session will last approximately 45 minutes, and if you have questions, feel free to add them to the question box, and we will answer them at the end of this presentation. This session is also being recorded and will be sent to all registered attendees next week. And I need to provide a quick disclaimer that the information provided here is intended for information purposes only and may not be incorporated into any contract. So first up, we have Thomas Wilson with GISinc. Thomas?
All right. Thanks, Cindy. All right. So like Cindy said, my name is Thomas Wilson. I'm the Cityworks architect for GISinc. And I'm going to be talking to you today about some solutions that Cityworks has as part of its enterprise platform that help kind of foster this contactless solution to help support social distancing and everything else that we're having to go through these days. Just by way of, one second here. Okay, so okay, so here we go. So talking about kind of systems and where they fall within the Cityworks platform, really primarily what we're going to be talking about is the public access portal for PLL. So that's going to allow folks our citizens to apply for permits online, contractors to schedule inspections. It's going to allow the citizen to track their permit through the process. Right, and so we're going to talk about some of those engagement processes that are going to be accessible to the public and to other departments, as well as how that information comes back into the system of record, which is the primary Cityworks application and system, and then how that is visualized for the insight component, right? So how are we going to pull information out of that out of the system of record and display it in means or in ways that we can glean useful information out of the system. So, starting with contactless solutions. So Cindy gave a description about that a little bit earlier, but really, what is it, right? It's enabling us to keep our workforce mobile, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the mobile platforms from Cityworks, whether that be Respond, the mobile app, things of that sort. But being able to keep your staff out in the field doing what they need to do, right? And it's also going to foster that online collaboration, not only with the citizens and contractors, like I mentioned earlier about the public access portal for PLL, but also with city departments. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some electronic plan review as it relates to permits as well, and then how that fits into the workflow and how that process kind of supports these types of solutions. But in the end, really the benefits for these is, it's efficient, right? So you're doing a lot of online collaboration. It's convenient for that same reason, but it's also safe, and because it promotes the social distancing that we're having to kind of abide by these days. But what this really proves, and not just for the times that we're in right now, but also long term, right? So that business continuity, that's more in the short term, it's keeping things going with what we're having to do with now, but also long term, being able to give your organization that long-term foundation that you can keep with, whether that be continuing with online collaboration or mobile workforce, from a mobilization standpoint. But in the end, the ultimate goal of all this is to keep the community safe, supporting that social distancing requirements that we're having to abide by these days. So really the question is, how can Cityworks help, right? So we're going to talk about that online permitting application, the ability to do that online through the public portal. So that's going to be not only submitting the application itself, but also including the digital documents that go along with those applications, as well as paying the payments for those permits online. And then once those permits are then accepted and pulled internally for review, how electronic plan review can support those different workflows and processes as the permit is going through its approval stages and review and whatnot. So, and then also being able to do those permit inspections and follow-ups in the field using Respond, the mobile app, and then how the citizen can really track those permits online. So they're able to track these the statuses online without having to come into the office or to otherwise pass paper back and forth between the organization and the citizen. So overall overview, rather, of the permitting process is going to be from the application stage. So this is where the customer can get online into the portal, submit that application, fill out a lot of the permit details that they would otherwise fill out on a paper document or some sort of form when they come into the office. Also, send the supporting documentation along with it, and then pay any fees that might be applicable. And then once that application is submitted and it goes into processing, that internal process is going to take over, and that's where that application is going to be reviewed. It's going to be accepted. The information that they submit is going to be reviewed and applied to that permit process. Any inspections that need to take place, any notifications, any communications between the organization is going to be handled during that time. Well, while that's going on, the customer through the portal can track that information. So it's going to be able to track their permit status, any inspections that need to be scheduled. They can schedule those through the portal itself. They can print documents, and then of course pay additional fees either at the time of application or as other fees come up through the permitting process. And then once all that stuff goes through your internal processes, right, and hopefully ends up in an ultimate approval of that permit. And so what we're going to talk now is about the public access portal for PLL. So the PLL access portal, public access portal, is a website that is, it's kind of, it supplements the PLL application that you currently have deployed. Is a separate website that allows for that online application process, but it's directly integrated with Cityworks. So everything that they're filling out and applying for online gets sent directly into your primary Cityworks application. But the user can log in when they come up to the site originally. They can apply for a login, which can be, or essentially they just create themselves a login to the site. And then once they get in, they're able to select which type of permits that they want to apply for. And this is determined by the organization, which types of permits that you want to expose to the portal. But they can choose the type of application that they want to submit and then begin the process of filling that out. So once they begin that application, they're able to give some descriptions of the permit they're applying for, and then give it a location, right? So Cityworks being a GIS-centric application, it's really relies on that spatial component. And so they're able to do that either through clicking on a map, showing that location, or using the geocoder that's built into the application. And so that geocoder and the map as well, they're both using your internal data to validate that address. So they're going to do that, and they're going to go through a series of screens through this process, which is going to allow them to ultimately submit this application. So they're going to give it a location, and then once they're done with that, they're going to start filling in that information. So the next part in this case is the people section, right? So you're going to be able to not only capture their information, but they're going to be able to add additional information like the contractors, the owners, any additional contractors that might be required for this. And then the organization has control over what type of information is required here and what type of information is exposed. But you'll see here, they're able to add this information, and then the next screen, they're able to add additional information that is also typically found on your permit application documents, right? So these are the paper forms they would normally fill out. You're having them capture that information in the portal. So, cost of construction, total square footage, the type, details of the construction project, or the permit that they're applying for. So all of this normally would be filled in on a piece of paper, handed to somebody at a desk, and they would key that in. Well, that is not only saving you time from not having to do that data entry, but it's also reducing the citizen to have to come into the office and give that piece of paper to somebody. So you're kind of supporting that contactless social distancing type of approach. So the citizen is able to fill in all this information directly in the portal, and the information that they're putting in can then be used to calculate the fees that are associated with this. And again, this is all based on the configuration that's set up within your application, but then the citizen has the ability to either pay right now, as far as pay the payment at the time of application, or they can postpone it until later in the process. But you can still enable those workflow controls within Cityworks, within PLL, to require fees be paid before certain steps within the workflow can take place. So before they can issue a permit or before you can go into the review stage, those fees must be paid. You can put those kind of controls into your workflow. But if the citizen chooses to pay the payment or pay the fees at this time, then they can do so from the portal, and the portal out of the box utilizes the Authorize.net and PayPal payment gateways. So again, that's going to allow the citizen to put all this information in, apply for this permit, potentially pay fees, and once that's submitted, all of that information goes into Cityworks for your internal staff to ultimately process. Now, once they go through that processing, they start that processing, right? They're going to validate that application is complete, and then once it's complete, those documents have been submitted from the portal, then they're going to go into the plan review stage. Now, the plan review stage may include one or multiple departments, whether that be inside the organization or even external to the organization. And what that allows this electronic plan review, what it allows you to do is to prevent or really eliminate the need for passing physical documents between departments. Now, whether that is even just emailing plans, even if they're digital, but not having to have somebody from the organization kind of walk those plans around or mail them out or have couriers send them. You're not having to pass physical documents. And so not only is that, it's more efficient because it's paperless, but also that you're not having to expose your staff to other places that they're having to go to deliver these documents. So electronic plan review is going to allow these different departments. It's going to be supported with as essentially a paperless solution, which is going to increase efficiency because it's not only better for the environment, but also much more streamlined as far as approach because it's quicker, right? You're going to have it's going to support the digital departmental collaboration. So you're going to be able to interact with other departments within the organization or external departments through the electronic plan review solutions that allow them to do markups, do comments, communications between the departments, all paperless. And then also it allows you to, they can allow you to communicate directly with the applicant as far as if there are revisions that need to take place, the applicants can be notified, and then resubmissions can be sent to the organization. But really the key to this also is that direct workflow integrations with Cityworks PLL. So as these plan review steps are being done and completed, those workflow steps within Cityworks can be completed as well. And so that way your users are not having to go between applications to check statuses, right? As those statuses are completed in the plan review platforms, they are completed in Cityworks as well. And so Cityworks, the way Cityworks handles this is working with various partners to supply these paperless or these electronic plan review solutions. And so they're shown here. And so all three of these partners here are directly integrated with Cityworks and support this type of solution within the Cityworks platform. So with all of the permitting and the activity that's going on within this whole process, your users are still going to be able to address any of the inspections, do any of the follow-up information, and collect information on these permits from their mobile devices, whether that's using Respond, what you're seeing on the left, or the mobile app, what you're seeing on the right. And so this is just as applicable for the AMS side of the house, which Dinorah is going to talk about a little bit in a few minutes. But in the end, all of this is still supported. What we talked about so far is still supported from the mobile platform, not just your office desktop or your laptop. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand it off to Shane Burnham with the City of Carmel, and he's going to talk a little bit about their experiences with these types of solutions and how they've implemented and what benefits that they provided for the city. So I'll hand it over to Shane now.
Thanks, Thomas.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Shane Burnham with the City of Carmel. I'm a GIS technician there. A couple of fun facts about the City of Carmel. City of Carmel, as of last year, has a population of about 100,000 people. Another fun fact, City of Carmel is known as the City of Roundabouts. We are on a 3 to 5 year infrastructure blitz right now to replace every traffic signal in the city with a roundabout. So if you look at any kind of orthophotography or aerial photography of the City of Carmel area, you'll notice that most of our intersections are now roundabouts. So check that out if you get a chance. Carmel is an extremely fast-growing suburb in the Indianapolis metro area. City of Carmel processes about 400 to 500 applications and building permits per month. So we're a very busy shop. It was a priority that we had to have some kind of software solution in place. We began implementation with GISinc actually we began discovery process in late 2018, but we actually began the implementation process in spring of 2019. We were currently using a system that had been in place since around 2003. It was about 17 or 18 years old. It was SunGuard Pentimation. Basically, that old software that we were using was shoehorned. It was originally accounting software, and it was shoehorned to basically just kind of be a records repository for anything permit application related or building permit related. There wasn't really much functionality beyond that. We already had Cityworks AMS in place. Our utilities department and our streets department went live with it in, I want to say, early 2016. So it was kind of a no-brainer at that point to just choose Cityworks PLL for all of our building permit and planning application needs. So the implementation process, I want to say it took about a little over a year, probably about 1 year and 3 months. As you can see right there, we eventually went live on February 4th, 2020. As most of you know, the situation around the world in the United States with COVID was deteriorating at that point, but that date, we didn't choose that date based around any current events. That was just kind of the date that we chose to go live with Cityworks PLL. And as you can see next, the city offices for City of Carmel closed on March 16th, 2020. Yeah, as you can see right there, there's all of our roundabouts. It was kind of just a total fluke, stroke of luck, miracle that we got this up and running when we did with GISinc. It really saved us having both Cityworks PLL and public access up and running. We, as Thomas talked about, we also did a couple of integrations that were critical for us. The most important integration was with our plan review software that's developed by Evolve. It's actually called Project Docs. That integration happens seamlessly between the workflow process inside Cityworks PLL and Project Docs. Once a plan review approval process is approved in Project Docs, it immediately sends that approval back into Cityworks, and the workflow inside Cityworks PLL can continue at that point. The other big integration that I actually didn't mention here was with our public record software known as Laserfish. I know a lot of municipalities and government entities use that as well. The integration that occurs is once any kind of planning application, docket number, building permit is approved inside Cityworks, it automatically pushes that planning application or building permit out to Laserfish for public consumption, public viewability. Right now, all of our building permits and planning applications can now be filled out online via public access that Thomas was talking about. There's no physical interaction required at this point. It can all be done remotely. Also, of course, Cityworks, as Thomas mentioned, is also web-based. So both internally, our employees can approve permits and applications anywhere they want from their home, in an office, anywhere. And all interaction with our public is now done remotely as well. So there's no physical contact required at this point. There's really no need for any of our constituents to come into our city offices to fill out any kind of city permits and applications. I guess now, so that's all I had. I think now what we're going to do, Cindy, is we're going to do a poll, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we are going to do a poll. Thank you for that information. Super good info. And so in the past 6 months, what trends have you noticed in the volume of permit applications in your area? Give you a few seconds here. Okay, that's interesting. Not a lot of change for some, but there is significantly more and somewhat more. We're just about the same. There's a tie there. That's awesome. Thank you so much for participating in that. Always good information to have. So next up, we're going to invite in Dinorah Sanchez, and she's with Cityworks, and she's going to go ahead and take the floor, Dinorah.
All right, thanks, Carletti, appreciate it. All right, so hello, everyone, wherever you may be right now. So I won't say afternoon, morning, just depending. All right, so as Thomas and Shane mentioned, the key part here is as we look at contactless solutions, we want to make sure that we have continuity of services, right? And so that translates not just during a pandemic, but during an emergency, other incidents. And so the important part of this, right, is we're wanting to document all the information that's occurring, but we also want to know it. We all revert back to those 4 W's, right? So what, when, where, why, and then even how. And how are we, and that's all in relation to work, to operations, to services. And that translates really well to operational awareness, because we want to know where is the work occurring, how is it being done, who's doing it, why are we doing it? And so part of that when we talk about operational insights is just keeping everyone informed, right? And being able to make sure you're you're transparent to your community and residents, but also to your workforce, because they need to know what's happening, how they need to adapt or adjust their just how they carry out their work. And obviously it's all about just facilitating, easing their job, right? How can we make it easier for them to do this job in the middle right now of the situation we're in? And so making sure that they don't have to fear that they may have to come into close proximity to someone. And we do that all with the use of contactless solutions. So keeping them safe and trying to make their job easier, or as easier as we can. So being efficient, effective in our operations. So when we talk about operational awareness, the first thing that comes to mind, at least from my nerdy brain, is being able to, obviously Cityworks is a really great platform. We start collecting all this information, but let's pump the brakes. Let's make sure that we're serving that information back up to our workforce and our residents. And so in this case, let's look at it internally, right? So to our crews, to upper management, how can we keep them informed of what we're doing? And if you haven't checked out, this is the latest in Respond. This is actually being able to jump in, see what's coming in from, if you have any engagement tools. Here I can modify this pie chart. If I don't want to look at the maintenance activities, I can, it will adjust on its own. And if I want to jump into any of these activities, I can, but it's all in one location that I can then share with my crews and my different groups as necessary. So great, we have that information that it's coming back, and it's actually, let me go a couple of slides here. I got too excited. It's just, you know, Tuesday. So exciting about these different tools we have here. And so one of the other things we talk about then is, okay, you've gotten all the different requests from the community, or just from a proactive side, you've gotten it from internal force also. And so now we want to say, okay, how can we not only be contactless, but now as we look at the operations, how can we start to make sure that, you know, we're all social distancing in that perspective also. And so, you know, this is addressing the who and the where. And as you can see from this image, is then saying, okay, I want to assign these activities and I want to see where these are happening and assign it in that manner. So here you're going to see, this is workload. If you haven't seen it before, on the right-hand side, you see the map, all the different assignments, everything that's not unassigned, who's doing what. And here, if I want to then focus in on just the crew, I can then say, okay, I just want to look at this one crew and see their activities. You see the map adjust. I can then see all the unassigned work activities, in this case, work orders, and we have an element of effort. So I can start to balance my different crews, what's on their plates, and then you can see the red there actually means that a lot of these are overdue. And so this is a nice tool to just be able to geographically assign, just be more tactful in how you're doing your assignments, and doing this remotely, right? Because the idea is, how do we continue to be socially distant? Making sure that if we can prevent really our crews having to be in close contact with one another, any little bit that we can eliminate that is really helping out our crews and making sure that they're feeling safe. So with that, the next thing we definitely want to look at is equipment availability. So how and when is this work being done, right? And so the how of it is, what do I need to get this work done? And I think maybe some of you are aware, we do have a tool in our platforms, been there for a while, equipment checkout. Now, I don't know how many of you are actually using it and making use of it throughout your platform, but if you haven't, this is kind of exciting, because we've actually, in the latest release that just went out, 15.6, a couple weeks ago, we actually extended it a little bit more to facilitate that, not just to one centralized location, but bringing it to the work orders. And so no longer do your crews have to go out and visit the yard to, you know, find the equipment they need and see if it's there, and then grab the key, sign it out on a form somewhere. Now, let's take advantage of equipment checkout in office, look at what's available, their availability, reserve it, check it out, check it in, and it's all being done contactless, right? It can be done remotely. And so you see an image here of what that equipment checkout is and what it looks like in office. And so let's go and check it out just in general, how that workflow. So here we're actually in Respond, and in a dashboard again, I open up that work activity. It's traffic. I need to actually go out and replace a bulb or signal head. I see there's no equipment reservation there, 0 and none checked out. Right off the bat, I know I need to do something about that because I don't have the equipment I need to get this job done. So I jump back into Office, or I call my equipment supervisor or manager, and I can now go into equipment checkout. And for this specific job, I'm going to need a bucket truck. So I can look up and see if that medium bucket truck is available. And so sure enough, it's showing that it's available. So I'm going to go ahead and reserve it. And remember, this could be from the comfort of your truck, laptop, from your office, wherever you need to get the job done. So I'm going to assign it out to myself. I can now also tag that reservation to the specific work order that we were looking at. And then I can say what availability I need it for, or when I want my reservation to occur. So I'm going to go ahead and just give it this date here. And then I could set an end date, or I could also work with the duration days and hours that will then auto populate and calculate the start end date, right? I can see it is available during this time, so I can go ahead and reserve it. So just by taking that, I don't have to have an interaction with someone, right? I could be on the phone and talking to the supervisor who can reserve this, or if I have access to it. And now it appears in my reservation areas. So I'm going to jump back into Respond. And then from here, I'm once again in that dashboard for traffic, tells me where everything is, but now I can open up that work order once again, and I can see where it's located on the right-hand side of the map. Cool thing about a Respond, but now I see that there is actually one equipment piece reserved. I can see the details behind it. I can now check it out. It's showing that it's being checked out, who it's being actually checked out by, add any comments. And then in the event that I need to check this back in, I can definitely do that also. So once again, all of this can be done remotely and while observing safe and correct measures of being just contactless. All right, the other part, I think most people have already gotten this, you know, a mobile workforce is very important, and just being able to work, this has been something that's been there this entire time, right? And that's the great thing about contactless solutions is most of this you've been training for this entire time, right? This has just been the way you operate. So now you're having to work remotely, maybe offline. You still have some areas that are not the best self-service, or you know, we have, I think our Sandy office just had some harsh weather last week. They're sometimes having to work disconnected. Mobile, our native app is definitely the option to go with that. And what you can see here is actually, once again, I can see where my different activities are. If I want to jump in here and start to work off them, I'm collecting, you know, all of the W's in the how of this work being done. Here's asset details if I need to dive into them. And I can see any related work activity. So in this case, there's an inspection associated with this payment work order. So I can go in there if there's any observation comments that I need to add, or just populate any of the observations. That's another thing I can do in, you know, just get the work done, and I don't have to be in contact with anyone. I don't have to fill out a paper work order and then give it back to someone. If I jump back into the work order, then I can actually then start to capture, you know, who did it, when did they do it, and all that information through equipment, labor, materials, easily populate, capture that information against this work, whether it's the work order, the inspection that's tied to it. And so just by doing this, I can not have to be in an office and observe all the social distancing that's necessary, because this can then sync back up with the rest of the platform, right? And so here, once I'm done, I can complete it. But don't forget that our native applications can actually also call out to ESRI's collector and navigator. So here you can see right from our mobile solution, you can link to those if there's any data updates that need to occur, if you need to route to the next location. All right, and the last part is we talked about informing your workforce, but you also need to maintain your community informed, right? And this is how we start to cut back on maybe some of the City Hall or Public Works visits or Parks and Rec visits, any visitors you may have just for general information. Let's serve up that information to your residents and community members. And one great way that our clients do that already during emergency events, but more and more are using it now just for citizen engagement and information, is our ERLs. And our Enterprise Universal Resource Locator is just one way to start to get those previously the safe searches, or now it's the queries that we're doing and respond, and be able to say, okay, these are all the activities that I want to provide and inform our residents on. I can select what I'm comfortable with, what I want to be to inform them about. So specific fields. In this case, we have 3 different fields: description, priority, and status. And there's actually 2 different types of activities here. There are traffic service requests and public works service requests and traffic work orders. And so depending on what fields I made visible here, the residents can then just click on them, see what's happening, see any progress. And that's just really up to you to decide what fields and how much you want to communicate to your residents. Really helps them cut back maybe some of the calls and refocus some of your staff to carry out other services, right? And then the last part, wouldn't be a Cityworks webinar and our work that we do also if we wouldn't also talk about the great tools that ESRI provides. They have some excellent solutions, COVID-19 related, any other vertical industry also. But specifically, I want to point out the business continuity and recovery area. And if you go down to this site here, this is actually, it will take you there, and they have a specific solution that then looks at how you can start to track workforce capacity. And that's really being able to say, okay, who came into close proximity or contact with someone else, or who's available to do the work. And this is just using some of their components such as ArcGIS Online, Survey 123 for ArcGIS, or even ArcGIS Tracker, just to make sure that you know what your workforce is and available workforce is. So obviously, as always, Cityworks is going to play really well with that. And a lot of the information that you have from Cityworks, you can obviously take that into any of the ESRI platform, use our URLs, push that into operations dashboards or any of the other tools, and even bring that information back into the Cityworks platform. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Miss Cindy Curletti to take us through the finish line. Thanks, because this is a relay. Really, it is. Thanks.
It feels like a relay. And we do have a couple of questions. Thanks, Dinorah, for that. And if I can get Thomas and Shane to turn their webcams back on, that would be great. Okay, so a couple of questions. We have a few more minutes here. What is an URL?
Yeah, the Enterprise Universal Resource Locator. I mean, everyone's firstborn's name, right? And the URL is actually a very simple but very powerful tool that can actually be used to create, like I mentioned, it used to be safe searches, now respond to queries. And so you can just set these parameters of what activities you want to return, and then you can set what fields you want to expose, and you can serve it out externally, but also a lot of our users can use it internally during emergency operations center activation. So just to keep upper management informed. It's a nice way also to send information to other platforms such as ESRI's.
City of Carmel utilizes those a lot for our, we have a portal up and running and our GIS server up and running. We utilize those a lot for our operations dashboards like Dinorah was talking about. I can actually, if you want to, can I share my screen? Is that possible? We don't have to do that if we don't want to, but I could demonstrate if you guys like. Seems like
we might be able to make you presenter.
Okay.
Let's see.
And Cindy, to add to what kind of Dinorah was talking about earlier, she showed it using AMS data, but it's also applicable for PLL as well. So
yes,
the same type of concept that Dinorah showed earlier for the AMS, the work orders, the service requests, the inspections, that same type of concept works for the permitting side as well. So it's again, it's all running on your safe searches that are configured in Cityworks into other applications.
And yeah, I was just going to ask that. Someone else had asked it. Can it be used with PLL as well? So thank you for checking in there.
So
go for it.
Any URL. So basically, so the way that Cityworks is driven is by safe searches, and basically a safe search is just a fancy name for a query. But I have, as you can see, a lot saved out right here. What you can do is share one of these out, like right here, I've got billing inspections for the last 24 hours. Share these out as a service, copy this in, to whatever map that you have inside Portal and add it. There we go. And there it is. It gives it a generic name initially, but you can change this name to whatever you want. But right there, and I may have a few other layers turned on right now, so I can turn those off just to show you guys. I will zoom out even further.
And there we go.
And there we go. And that
That's
data,
really cool.
these fields can be adjusted to. Yeah. So, and right here, we utilize that a lot in our operations dashboard for our building and code department. We have all of these indicators set up. So I'm gonna stop sharing.
Great
That's
news.
awesome.
Nice job there, Shane.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. One more question. If I'm interested in any of these tools, how can I get started and who do I contact?
I mean, really, I would say if you're yet to be a Cityworks customer, obviously Cityworks would be the first person to call. But really, I think a good point of contact for this would be your customer success manager on the Cityworks side. I think really to kind of broker that conversation with one of the business partners if you're interested in that, if you're interested in going that route, or with some self-help tools, right? The mycityworks.com portal that you have as a customer has a ton of great information on these solutions. But really, I think your first point of contact is probably your account manager, your success manager on the Cityworks side, and then they can help broker that conversation with either the tech support or their internal SMEs like Dinorah, or business partners like GISinc or others.
Awesome.
Your point, Thomas.
We've got a few more minutes here. How about, does Respond run on iOS and Android?
Yeah, so Respond is actually web-based. And so it can work in Android, you just open up in Chrome or Firefox, and you can use Respond. It does have to be connected. So I don't know if I forgot to say that, but it was on the slide that mobile can be worked on offline, right? Disconnected mode. Respond does require self-service, so you do have to be connected or have access to Wi-Fi.
Yep, it's essentially an additional user experience to go alongside Office and the mobile apps, but yes, it's still referencing all the same data that you'd be seeing otherwise.
That's great. One more question. Is everything Dinorah discussed available in 15.3? And
that is a no. Sorry. So there's going to be components.
They haven't been able to update it. So.
Yeah. So there's actually components that maybe I need to check. I think like equipment checkouts probably definitely there. That's the only one that makes me think possibly not, because like I mentioned, the latest of being able to use the equipment checkout, reservation check-in, checkout at the work order level is something we just put into 15.6 that was released a couple of weeks ago. But equipment checkout, if you're licensed for it, that's definitely been in office for a long time. Respond, I will definitely have to get back to, we'll follow back up with who asked this question, because I need to check how far back and what compatible Respond is available there, because dashboards is actually something that came out with Respond 2.0, which was compatible with, I believe, 15.5, so last year.
Okay.
And in mobile, you have different compatibility too, so we could definitely check back on that. But great question.
Yeah, and the EURL stuff that you showed them too, Dinorah, has been available for a while now, so
yep.
that's also there.
Yeah, actually that one, yeah,
awesome.
Compatible.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Dinorah and Thomas and Shane. Thanks for sharing that information with us today. Super helpful and great feedback that we're getting here. Thanks for joining us today. Please take our survey in the pop-up window when you exit the webinar. This allows you to provide feedback and ask additional questions. and be on the lookout for an email in the next week that contains the link to our video recording. And thank you all for joining us, and do not hesitate to reach out if we can help you or your organization. Thank you. Have a good day.
Great, thanks.
You guys.